In today's video, we're going to be turning back time and competing for the first time in probably 2 years for a prize pool of about $500 or so. But the main thing that I really cared about was the Matcherino pin. You can only get this pin if you win a tournament over, I think it's like $300. So for me, it's the only pin that I don't have. So I really need to win this tournament to win this pin. So if you guys are unaware of what the Belarus tournament is, it's much bigger in the NA region, but in EU, it basically consists of one content creator, which is going to be myself in each team, by the way, and then a pro player and a semi-pro player. So there's 16 teams. There's a lot of really good players like YDE, Semantic, and other names as well. Not every single really strong EU pro is actually in this one, but still quite a lot of notable names. So the first match was up and we faced off against Team Sunny, which consisted of Jaku, Sunny, and Maruf. So I know Maruf just because I played quite a few ladder games with him. He's a pretty good player. Jaku's a really underrated pro player, actually one of the best right now. And then of course Sunny, a content creator and a caster, which I've casted with throughout ESL. So I'd say that this game was, no disrespect to them, pretty simple. We won the game overall 3-0. Well, it was actually 2-0 because we didn't even have to play the third set. It was only a best of 3. So quite plain and simple, didn't even drop a single game. It was really good. Game led us to the quarterfinals, and it was still a best of 3 at the moment, facing off against Semantic, Galaxy, and X3. Semantic somehow qualified as the content creator instead of the pro player, but he basically is a pro player, so you could say X3 was the content creator and then Galaxy as the semi-pro. But anyways, a very good team. We're going to be facing off against them in a Crystal Arcade first set, and this was actually one of the most intense games I've ever played of Gem Grab. It was absolutely insane. You have to watch this one.
The next one, okay, the last one's going to be on their side, though. And Semantic has jumped. They got to get Crook out. They got to hit some shots on him. Oh, that was very close. This one gets 15. That was a bang. Oh! Guys, you guys know SpenLC won Worlds in 2019? In case you didn't, there's the pin.
After that really intense gem grab game, we had Infinite Doom Bounty. I've got no gameplay of this myself because I didn't really think too much of this tournament. I just thought I'd play it for fun, wouldn't really get too far in it. But this game was really, really close. Basically, what happened, we had the lead basically both games, but in the end they were able to turn things around and take that one. So now it's 1-1 in sets, going on to pit stop, and it was such a sweaty game, but in the end we reigned victorious. We moved on to the semi-finals, facing it off against Lapsa's team, which consisted of Maiku, Lapsa, and also Jesse. I know all 3 of these players, all of them are really strong. And then it led on to, of course, Gem Grab. So to start with, we started really strong, especially considering the draft. We actually baited them into going Shelly. We had the Sam, so in theory, Shelly should be able to deal with a Sam, but Mewtwo's just such a good Sam player who's able to get onto the right matchup onto Mr. P a lot earlier. And I was a little bit confused as to why they actually went max mid. It's so easy to counter, especially with the likes of Crow still in place. So we had the drafts on lockdown, we just needed to get the gameplay. So you see in my gameplay, we're just consistently trying to swap our matchups over and over again. And that was just the name of the game in voice chat, trying to make sure that Sam was following the Mr. P. And then we could somewhat deal with the Shelly. Of course, Shelly's just not as frightening as she once used to be. So as the game went on, we was able to get a lot of pressure, and we can consistently keep them back with some good supers. Mewtwo just going in time and time again, making sure that he's not revealing his position in the grass too early, so we can get some nice damage in. And eventually we were able to take the third game. The first and second one went kind of back and forth, and the third game we were able to really establish some control. So then we moved on to the second set, which was Bounty Canal Grande. So you guys probably know by now, Canal Grande is a really toxic map, especially if they get the draft wrong. So it's very important in the draft that we got something that we wanted. We managed to get Cole and Nita pretty early on, and I think Tara was pretty much a 5th or a last pick, can't remember off the top of my head, but we really liked it. We baited them into going Tick first pick, which normally is really bad to have, but in Canal Grande I felt like we could have a draft that could definitely overwhelm a Tick. So the first round didn't really go to plan. They was able to get a lot of super pressure from Primo. The second game, it led to me popping off pretty good. with Cole, you got to make sure that you're kind of catching your opponents off guard, especially with a flying hook, making sure you get some really good value out of it. And of course, just avoid the Primo as much as possible. Maisie, a big counter as well, but at least I can keep my distance against Maisie. And then it led to the third round. So again, this set going all the way to the distance. But this round was a lot different. There's not really much highlights to really go over this one because we managed to get the blue star, of course, with Carl. But then both teams were just sitting back on either side, just waiting for the timer to run down and then just waiting for them to make a move. And then I could just use my flying hook and get the kill on tick. So we were 2-0 up in the semi-finals. Now we're moving on to the third and potentially final set here. We might be able to get a clean sweep on our way. So I wanted to point out the draft in safe zone. So this was a Mewtwo masterclass. I think he did his research 100%. So you can see by the bans we went with Bonnie, Colette and Eve. They're just really consistent brawlers on safe zone. And then they went with a Belle first pick, which is pretty good. And then this was a bit kind of like the old meta. We went with Shelly and the 8-bit. So Shelly used to just be so strong. Of course, really good at countering tanks. And especially as a last pick, well, we have last pick. We kind of want to take away the best tank counter out there. So, of course, Shelly can be pretty good and just really annoying to deal with, especially since Colette is banned out. And then, of course, we went with 8-bit. Of course, damage is the name of the game in Heist. There's no Brock. There isn't a lot of options to really go in terms of big damage, so 8-bit was really good there. But the strange thing is that they went with a double counter to 8-bit. They went Penny and Squeak. So they went 3 of my hardest counters, but then Mewtwo could just go Sam. So you can see in the gameplay that basically the whole game, I was just getting Squeak gadgeted. I was getting Penny turret after Penny turret. Squeak even had the slow stop power as well. So I wasn't able to move pretty much the entire game. But Mewtwo and also Crooks was able to get a lot of pressure and able to carry me throughout most of it. But that was just the name of the game anyway. Mewtwo said, you know, I'm not really supposed to do too much because, of course, I'm against 3 of my counters. And eventually, I was able to push up a few times, get a lot of damage with just 1 push. And that was the name of the game here. I was able to win 3-0 and move on to the final. So now moving on to the final where we face off against Waterflame's team, which he's the content creator. And he's a pretty good content creator because he pushes really high in Power League and streams it a lot. Really good player. And then Matt also, he's the top 20 in overall trophies right now. And he's from the UK. Really good player as well. And then lastly, the pro player Philip on their team, who's a really strong player. So we knew this was going to be a pretty hard game, but I still had really good confidence that we could win this one. So first map, double swoosh. So with double swoosh, it can be a bit of a tricky one, and they tried to outdraft us, especially with the Gene and the Surge. So this isn't one which is very typical. I would say this is more so of like a few EU teams tend to go Surge on this map and it can work out. But we first picked Squeak. Squeak is very good. And then I think they tried to bait us into going Mr. P as well. So that is one brawler that can be good. But we didn't want to pair Mr. P with a Squeak because then they could probably last pick a really aggressive option and then just run all over Squeak and Mr. P. So we picked Stu mid and then also Spike to counter the Gene and the Surge. And then they had a Grey as well. So just pretty good into our composition. So as the games went on, we constantly tried to switch up our matchups. First we had Stu mid, but that didn't really work out the best. Then we put Squeak mid, which was actually really good, especially with the residue in the middle. The other thing, of course, we had to worry about was that with Squeak, you don't have any way to kind of tank a Gene pull. But then Gene went lane and Grey mid. It was just a really weird match overall. But especially in the first and second game, it was super close. It was literally went the distance a lot of the times. But just because of a lot of pressure that we're able to get with Mewtwo on a Stu down the lane. And then Squeak, all you need to do is maybe wait for them to go out of position a couple of times. And literally connecting 2 or 3 shots pretty much kills all 3 of these brawlers. So Squeak can be a very punishing brawler. And for me, it just has to be the best brawler in the game because he's so versatile. You can play him everywhere, every single map. So we just try to abuse Squeak as much as possible. People were just giving him as early in the draft. And as long as you've got somewhat of one decent brawler that can counter tanks in your composition, and then you can be pretty good. So the first round in gem grab, it did go pretty much the distance, but then we're able to confirm a lot of gems ourselves. We kept going back and forth into the end until Mewtwo was able to pick up a few clutch gems and we're able to win the game. So the first round going to us. So now moving on to the second set, which was Canal Grande again. So we had a good idea how to draft for this map because I think we played it like this is the third time we played it, so we had a good idea on who to ban. We ended up banning out Eve, Squeak and Barley. All of these brawlers are just really annoying to face off against. They first picked Jean. We answered with a Tick and also Nita. Nita's a really good option on Canal Grande at the moment. Of course, Tick is one of the best for sure, and it just literally gave us a free Tick, and especially going into a Jean, Tick is amazing into Jean. And then they went with a Carl and Gray, of course, to try and get some aggression onto Tick, but then that just led us to go a free Tara game, because of course the pets can just handle Jean so easily, and it also can deflect a lot of shots from the likes of the Gray. So that was going to be a really good draft for us. So again, the name of the game here was to get as much value out of Tick, because of course you can't really group up against Tick, so their game plan really should be to counter us, is to split up as much as possible. But we have Nita and Tara. It's really hard to pinch these two brawlers out in specific on this map, because of course both of them have quite a lot of HP for a lane, and then of course both of them have really powerful supers. Tara of course can literally get some really good double kills, and that's what Crooks did a lot of the time, and then of course Bruce can push you back a lot of the time. So we just had a lot of pressure. These guys didn't really seem too unison and didn't really know their game plan too much. Again, my Tickhead can just be really good against both Gray, well, against all of them. None of them can really take it down successfully a lot of times, as long as I was kind of counting their ammo. So that was just my job, just keeping them back. I'm not really the best Tick, you know, Tom used to play Tick for us all of the time, but I was doing a pretty good job for it. As long as I was staying close to my teammates, I weren't going to get abused by the aggro. So it led to me getting a 5-star game and also a 4-star game. So overall, pretty happy with the performance, and I would say it's pretty plain and simple. I just think the draft really went our way, and to be honest, I actually gave some good drafting advice. I think Tara was one straight away that really appealed to me, just because they had a Jean and a Gray. You know, back from when I used to compete, Tara used to be one of the most frustrating brawlers for me to face off against as a Jean, so I knew that would be pretty good into it. So we're actually up 2 sets here, just 1 set away from getting that luxurious match arena pin. Now moving on to set number 3, we have Kaboom Canyon. So this is a map which I really do enjoy. We managed to pick up, I believe, a Belle first pick, which was very nice, and then actually no, they went with the Brock first pick, I believe, and then it was the Belle and also the Carl for us, which was going to be really strong. They went to the Shelly and the Daryl, so then we could last pick a Tara. Tara is actually a really solid pick in this meta right now, especially on Kaboom Canyon. A lot of times as well, teams end up drafting like Jessie, a Tara as well. There's a lot of variety in this meta. Normally it's just plain and simple typical brawlers. They went with the Shelly, which I guess we went it before on Heist, but I just think in this scenario it's a little bit too easy for us to counter, just because again Shelly's only going to have a decent matchup against Carl, but then we've got Belle and also Tara that can deal with her pretty easily. So the game actually didn't go to plan as we wanted, because we actually lost the first game of this set. I think the main reason being is because we just focused on damage too much, but with our composition we haven't really got a ton of damage. We need a lot of control and then chip damage on the safe, so we didn't want to turn this into a base race. They would quite clearly win it with Brock and Daryl. We needed to keep control, and then the second game we just changed our game plan to exactly that, and it works out. And then the third game was just complete and utter annihilation. We're able just to keep them back for so long. They couldn't get outspawned the entire time. Every single time they came back, I just had a Belle mark onto one of those guys, or a Tara super was available, and then as soon as we got like 1 kill, Mewtwo was able to get so much pressure, and you clearly see me here just consistently hitting shots, and you've probably seen me on stream as well. When I play Belle on this map, I don't know what it is, I just don't die. Like, this is the one map in the game where if I have a Belle, it's pretty much over for the enemy team, because I don't die. I'm able to consistently keep up the damage, and that was what we was able to do. So very clean gameplay from us. We were able to finally get the pin that I needed to complete my collection, and now I probably have I do have the rarest collection in the entirety of Brawl Stars, managing to get a match arena pin and also a world finals pin. No one can even compete, so maybe I need to come back to competing, maybe get another world finals pin. But that's gonna be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.